What's up, metalheads? On today's episode, I'm spinning the wax with Sammy Urwin of Employed to Serve, and we're diving into some 70s prog when we listen to Close to the Edge by Yes. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. What's up, my friends? Welcome back to Spinning the Wax, where we listen to your favorite artists' favorite records. My name is John Garcia, aka Stay Puffed, your friendly neighborhood headbanger. On today's episode, I have the esteemed Sammy Urwin, who presents us with what may be considered one of prog rock's finest moments. Sammy is a guitar player in British metalcore band Employed to Serve, and he also is the founder of Church Road Records, whom he runs with his wife and fellow Employed to Serve vocalist Justine Jones. Sammy breaks my yes cherry as we dive into 1972's Close to the Edge, which is my first time ever listening to a Yes album in full. Yeah, go ahead and boo and hiss, you prog nerds. I can take it. It means nothing to me. This is also the first time that I listened to an album without having any previous experience coming into it. Like no research, no cursory first listen. My very first listen of this was while we were recording this episode. A self-described musical magpie, Sammy discusses his journey with this band, as well as prog rock in general, and how it took a little bit for this band to click with him. And you will see why as you get further on in this episode. We talk about how weird it was that bands like this, like Pink Floyd, Rush, Jethro Tull, so many other like proggy, folky bands were just massive at this time, playing in stadiums to huge audiences all over the world. We also take some time to chat about how artists like Sammy manage to balance their fans' expectations when it comes to new material against what fulfills them as artists, what feeds the soul and makes them continue to do what they want to do. We also delve into how Church Road Records came about and how it's doing now, as well as a teensy little bit of discussion about new Employed to Serve music. I also wanted to let you know that on this episode, you'll hear a little bit of bleed through on Sammy's end, so you'll be hearing the music while we talk sometimes. It's not that big of a deal, and actually it's kind of a fun little enhancement to this specific episode, but I just wanted to give you a heads up in case you're wondering if your speakers are broken or anything like that. And also as a reminder, these episodes are condensed for your listening pleasure to make it a little bit better experience on the podcasting episodes. But if you would like full episodes to sync the album to and experience those massive church organs with us, check us out on Patreon. I have full episodes up there that you can listen along with us. We also have live streams, new music updates, and a whole bunch of stuff that we'll get into at the end of this episode. But for now, I've been doing too much talking. Let's get into this record. My next guest comes from across the pond in the UK, where he is a guitarist and vocalist to the incredible metallic hardcore, metallic metal, modern metalcore, I don't know what you said, just good-ass fucking metal, Employed to Serve. They've toured with Gojira, they've toured with Pupil Slicer, they headline their own tours, and they're sick as hell. Please welcome Sammy Urwin to the show. Welcome, Sammy. Nice to see you, dude.
What's up? Nice to see you too, John. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. How's the weather over there in England?
Oh, dude, it's not famously British right now. It's scorching hot, and I'm in a top floor flat, and I'm melting right now.
Yeah, we're in the worst part of the summer where it's just like you don't go outside for half of July and most of August. You're just inside of the AC because there's heat warnings every day. But such is the life of living in the American South.
But you guys are like set up for it though. You have like air conditioning units. Like we don't get enough weather like this to like kind of warrant having that built in. So we've got a fan in the corner of the room that just blows hot air at you. And we're thankful for it, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. It's just any type of airflow that you can get. I've visited England usually in like the May, June months, to where it's like usually pretty nice. But if you have a warm spring day, like a warm early summer day, you go into one of these shops or these buildings that have been built out of stone that have been there for 500 fucking years, and just all airflow stops the second that you walk into the door.
Yeah, dude, we're not made for any kind of like severe weather. Like it's like when it snows here, just everything comes to a grinding halt. It could be like an inch of snow and there's like all trains like not happening.
Yeah,
No
well,
one's
that's the same in Nashville too. Like I lived in Michigan for a little bit, and it would just dump down snow, and people would still go and about their daily lives. But here, same thing. If there's even a threat of snow, schools close, grocery shops are going down to the bare of the shelves, and everything like that. It's crazy. So I guess we should talk about this now, because I'm sure that we're just gonna go off on tangents and conversations as we get in. But we were talking about this before we recorded, that you are bringing on the hallowed prog band Yes today to listen to their what is it, their 1972 album Close to the Edge. And as I was telling you, I could probably not pick out a Yes song from a crowd. I've heard a few here and there, but I've never done like a deep dive or a discography listen or anything like that, as I'm sure that there are probably many listeners who are listening to this right now who haven't. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I literally have never heard this album before. I'm blind going in, which is the first time on this show that this has happened. So I'm very excited to do this.
Oh, nice.
Sammy, why do you love this record?
Wow, there's so many reasons why I love this record. I mean, it really is one of those albums that you can put on and just fully lose yourself, in. And for me, that's a big one. Like most of my favorite records are albums that I can stick on no matter what mood I'm in. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm just going to be fully immersed. That's one side. I mean, the musicianship I just think is absolutely incredible. It just makes me feel happy when I listen to it. And I don't know, there's so much going on. I also think it's kind of a hidden gem. I mean, kind of going back to what you were saying about not being able to pick out, a Yes song, and maybe for some other listeners they won't be too familiar. I mean, I feel like Yes is definitely one of those bands, because like the song that everyone usually knows is like Owner of a Lonely Heart. That's like the big, standout single from Yes. And I feel that's, as much as that is a good song, that's kind of like a misrepresentation of what Yes really is, like the classic Yes. That was more their kind of poppy era, without another guy called Trevor Rabin who was writing the material. And I feel people don't, because it is an immense discography. I mean,
dude, like very intimidating to look at this thing on Wikipedia or Spotify or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those bands that has many different eras and obviously many different lineups. And we were, when we were chatting before we started recording, and you were saying, they've been one of those bands that have been on your list to kind of jump into the discography of. And I've got bands the same. One on my list at the moment is the Beatles, and it's a kind of similar thing where it's like, I mean, maybe less for the Beatles, but still quite a few albums and a few things to check out. And it's like, where do I start? And by picking Close to the Edge for the show today, I was like, right, hopefully this will be like the entry point for a few people.
Given that, it's 70s prog, which, Blue Oyster Cult, Deep Purple, fucking like all of these different Rush, all of these different bands that kind of it's kind of like grunge, where you lump all these bands into like an umbrella or a bucket, but they don't really all sound the same or really anything having to do with each other. And I feel like Yes could be one of those bands that maybe there are a lot of people my age or younger, or I guess our age or younger, that might have a, what would you call it? Not the right representation of their thought in their mind, I guess, if that makes sense. Whereas like you think they sound like a certain way, but they may not. I guess, how would you describe this band, and I guess this era that this is, to people that haven't heard this band before? Like, what should people expect when coming in to listen to this band?
That's a very good point. And I feel Yes maybe gets like left out of the, like, because I would say like in recent times that, like, you mentioned some great bands there by saying, who do you say it was? Rush,
Deep Purple,
Blue Oyster Cult
Blue
was
Oyster
another.
Cult,
I mean, for me, like that latest Pallbearer record, I could be completely way off, but to me sounds like they were listening to Blue Oyster Cult. So and you got Rush, obviously influencing like bands like Crownlands and things like that. And and what's that awesome band from Canada? Is it Freeways or something like that?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. They have a Winnebago on their album covers, right? Yes, that is Freeways.
Yeah, exactly. And there's loads of bands, obviously wearing their prog rock influences on their sleeves. And I feel Yes maybe is not so easy to kind of, I don't know, state for certain bands like they've been a definite influence on them. But as you'll hear, particularly in the title track for Close to the Edge, there are, in amongst the melody and the sort of more major sounding parts of the music, there are elements of dissonance and kind of more esoteric kind of things going on. They were, I mean, because I feel like they were influenced by, like, is it John McLaughlin, who was Mahavishnu Orchestra and stuff like that. So there is that element of kind of the more angular kind of sounding parts, which I feel like, you know, anyone who listens to, say, like Sumac or maybe Liturgy, bands like this, you know, whether or not they were directly influenced by it. I feel like Sumac probably was, because knowing what they kind of listen to, but you'll be able to hear their influence on the wider sort of heavy music, alternative music landscape.
Yeah, I think that that's a great answer, and I'm excited to dig into this and have like a coach along the way too, because I know that there are some bands that are just not necessarily that you need to be like force fed or like hold hands or something like that, but it's always good to, you know, in my opinion, have someone who's like really excited about this stuff to be like, no, let's sit down and listen to this, and I'll tell you why, you know.
And I think it's really important you say that as well, because I do feel there are certain elements of Yes's music that might be for like the first listen. I mean, we've all had it, right? There's been bands you listen to and you go like, oh, I don't know about the vocal, or I don't know about this or that. And it takes a little bit of time to warm up to it. And I feel like John Anderson, the vocalist, his voice sometimes has that effect on people, because it's quite angelic, you know what I mean? So it could come across like maybe a little bit too, I don't know, not everyone's cup of tea, I should say. But I guess we'll see. I'm interested to see what your reaction's going to be.
Yeah, me too. I mean, if there's yodeling in it, we already have Hocus Pocus by Focus, so like I have heard all of the weird fucking 70s prog shit. So let's do this. This is a first. I've never listened to a Yes album in full before, so Sammy, I'm so happy that you're here with me. Let's do it. This is Close to the Edge by Yes. And as you said, all the best albums start with bird sounds.
Yeah, and I immediately said that, and my brain, the gears were just going, shit, what else starts with bird?
What starts with bird? I know, I think, did you ever listen to Sentenced?
Oh, the like kind of, would you describe it? The like dark gothy kind of.
Yes, they're from Finland.
I know they're like I think it's their first album a little bit, but I'm not too familiar with the discography. But do they like bird samples?
No, they for one album in particular, they're my favorite album by them, The Cold White Light. It starts with like echoey like caw or something with, it's really cool. I love that album. One of these days I'll force someone to listen to it on this stream. But
oh mate, well I'll take that recommendation and I'll listen to it after.
Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 banger, just like boom 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 boom. Trigger warning for that. There's a lot of talk of suicide on that album, but like it's just still fun. It's kind of like the pre Unto Others, I would think.
Right, okay. Well, I love Unto Others, so
yeah, same.
So pretty much straight off the bat, like, you know, after the bird samples have been and done, it's straight progging from the get-go.
Yeah, we're like sound check, like warm up mode right here.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you listen to like Steve Howe's the guitar player on this record, and I think he has quite a unique kind of guitar technique that he does. It's like you can instantly tell it's him. But going back to Sumac, I mean, listening to what's going on now, if you listen to, you know, some of their stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they've been listening to a bit of Yes in their spare time.
I got a promo for the new Sumac album, which is out now. I gave it a cursory listen. It was one of those things that I do not have time, and I'm not in the headspace for this stuff, but I can tell this is good, so I will listen to it at some point. And I haven't gotten there yet, but when I do, I'll kind of like have an ear on with all this stuff that I'm hearing, because this is kind of like almost like angular noise rock almost right here.
Those little bits that just come in are just like, yeah, so sick. But yeah, I mean, this is like definitely one of the more angular parts, and then as you'll hear, it will go into something more major sounding and very pretty. But going back to that Sumac record, man, I mean, yeah, you're quite right. You can't put it on in the background. You gotta go for a walk and listen to it.
Yeah, know? Exactly. And unfortunately, with the amount of music that I like and want to listen to, there's not enough time in the rest of my life to listen to everything I want to listen to. But yeah, I love my, you know, oppressive and dark and dank and sad and sludgy type of things. It's just like, I don't want to be in that headspace all the time.
For real, man. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I mean, and perfect you saying that. Yes, for me was that kind of band, particularly during like the COVID times and stuff
Mm.
like that, where I think everyone didn't want to be in that headspace all the time. And for me, listening to stuff like Yes and other prog rock bands, a lot of Rush and stuff like that, it just kind of made me feel happy. Which sometimes, obviously we want to pretend to be super brutal metalers
Of course.
all the time, but sometimes you want to stick on something that just makes you smile. I mean, like Judas Priest, for example. If you're feeling down and out, go stick on Judas Priest.
Dude, a go-to for me. I mean, you can't see it right now. I've got a Screaming for Vengeance back patch framed up there. But that actually gets into something that I was going to ask, because obviously this band means a lot to you, given that in those trying times like COVID, this is something that's going to take your brain off the lockdowns and everything else going on in the world and stuff like that. What was your journey with Yes? Is this a band that you've been listening to for like a really long time? And kind of how did you discover them and start weaseling your way through their discography?
It's a good question because, like, the usual one everyone thinks, particularly, we've been to see him a couple of times now, me and Justine, and everyone's like, we're fairly young for the sort of general demographic who goes to see him.
Yeah, I can
Like,
believe that.
what are you doing here? Like, where are your parents, or did you get into them because of your parents? And I can honestly say my parents hate Yes. Like my mum's just like, she doesn't get it at all. She just thinks like all prog rock is super lame. She's into like David Bowie and stuff like that. She's much cooler. So I'm trying to think. It wasn't like a band I grew up listening to and it was in my DNA for ages. Because I'll be honest with you, if you played me Yes like 10 years ago, I'd probably be like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't get it whatsoever. But I think it's kind of testament to, if you're like, like ourselves, really into music and you listen to a lot of music, as life goes on and you get older,
Yeah.
you kind of seek out stuff that's new and interesting to you. So even though it's something you might not have initially been into, you kind of stick with it and you kind of start exploring it more. And even if you don't get it on the first listen, there's something that keeps like pulling you back to it. And that's kind of like where my fascination with Yes came. I think I got into them initially because a lot of other prog rock bands like Rush, for example, were heavily influenced by records like Close to the Edge and their other albums. And so I just, I sort of delved in, had a little bit of a listen. Wasn't sure on the first listen, but slowly but surely I kept coming back and just became fascinated.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like this is one of those bands where you have to do that. I mean, you mentioned kind of like the vocals and everything like that, which I'm not having too much of a problem with right now. It's kind of like weird and elfy and kind of like I could see this at like a theater stage or something like that, just like that kind of vibe. Having to listen to something multiple times, like I feel like a quintessential band like that. I had to do that with Rush a lot, and I feel like Rush is even more accessible of a proggy band than Yes might be, or something like that. I've heard shit like this before, but I definitely this is not a sort of area of prog that I'm like really used to hearing, and it does stand on its own.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And like, I don't know, there's just something fascinating about music that doesn't always click. I mean, don't get me wrong, you need music for all purposes. Sometimes you do just want to stick something on that is just like a banger, what I mean?
Brutal and heavy, just I just want to be dumb and bang my head for 4 minutes.
Absolutely. And then sometimes you do just want something that you're like, this is weird. And also as well, the thing that fascinates me, not just with Yes, but with like prog rock of like the same era, is like how big these bands got releasing music like this. You know what I mean? Like, Yes, when this record came out, were like an arena band.
Yeah.
And that astounds me, I mean, I'm definitely not going to be old man yelling at cloud and say there's not bands or musicians taking risks these days, because there absolutely is. And there's amazing music out there. And there's amazing, challenging music in the pop sphere. But I feel like there's nothing really kind of on this level of like avant-garde and sort of, challenging music that, 20-minute long pieces that are playing arenas. You know what I mean? It just kind of blows my mind that was a thing in the early 70s.
I'm sure LSD had a lot to do with it at that time, but like you're right too, because I don't know. I'll see. I'm probably going to keep going back to Rush a lot just because like that's a a staple point that I really know. But even
Sure.
seeing Rush in the '70s, where there was like no, there was no pageantry. Geddy Lee maybe had like a puffy shirt on, but other than that, like that was about as flamboyant as they got. And it was just three dudes on a stage just blowing people's mind. And then like kind of what you're saying kind of reminds me a little bit more of how Pink Floyd started to do like their albums and stuff like that, where all of a sudden you have fucking 20 different musicians on stage that are not part of the band that they got because like, oh, we need 5 background singers and an organist and a glockenspielist and a dude to like shoot the cannon and like all of that other different
Yeah.
stuff. And it kind of seems like, is that like kind of what you're saying, like Yes went as well with their stage setups and their live shows?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah. They started off initially just as a 5 piece, and they were just, a band on stage to start off with. Particularly at this time, close to the edge, they didn't have anything crazy going on. As it progressed, they started doing some more crazy stuff. Like they did a lot of shows in the round on follow-up albums, and the stage rotated. And they also had the person who's done the majority of Yes's cover artwork is a guy called Roger Dean.
Mm-hmm.
He may or may not be familiar with, but
Mm-mm.
he designed like a lot of their like stage props as well. So at one point in time, they did have these like ginormous, just like I don't even know what you'd call them, just like big like bubble kind of sculptures on stage. But that all kind of came later. I mean, to start off with, they were just the 5 dudes on stage just playing this ridiculous music, and people were there for it. I mean, I think it all kind of plays into. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but obviously, just a decade earlier, like the advent of like pop music and music for the youth, like the Beatles and stuff, had only just happened. So I think
Yeah.
there was this real like hunger for knowledge and just music that was different. People just wanted to absorb it. I mean, another like reference point for how crazy music was at the time and the kind of crowds that would show up to hear it is always the Isle of Wight festival in I think 1970, where there was 400,000 people there, witnessing people like Miles Davis play like Bitches Brew. I mean, that to me just
Yeah, it just blows your
is
mind.
insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, just astounding.
Yeah, and because as you were talking about this, we're in this kind of ethereal, ambient, atmospheric part after this, like
Yes.
all of these weird, just musicians tuning and just having a fucking go with their instruments and like having a laugh or whatever it is. But like to your point, this album has 5 people on it or whatever, and just the synthesizers and stuff like that so far are the quote unquote weirdest things that we've heard so far. Otherwise it's just a bunch of dudes with their instruments just going weird. And I think this, to your point, speaks to that hunger for weirdness and artists really wanting to push the bounds and do shit that was hadn't been done before, or just see what they could do with it. And I don't know if there might have been a little bit of like, what can we get away with and people will still listen to us, I'm
A
sure that,
great example, like the church organs now.
yeah, they was just faded in out of nowhere, like they just came in and now we're here.
This is a chicken skin moment for me. Like every time, I don't know if you can see it, but like
Yeah.
when those organs come in, man, it's just after that like drop down section is just mwah, bellissimo, so good.
I feel like all of us who have made it to this point to where we talk about music or play music or listen to music or whatever it is, work in music, we're trying to chase that purple dragon that we got when we were like 14, 15, when music just felt so fresh and so new. And
Yeah.
it's never going to feel like that before. We're always going to be chasing a dream that's something that we can't have. But I know we can get close to it sometimes, right? There are always those bands that, feel like they're opening up something again with you. And I understand the draw for this band to do that. Like you said, with the church organs or whatever else may come through here, where you're like, holy fuck, that, we just sat through 6 minutes of whatever it is, but then we built up to here, and that wouldn't have made as much sense if we didn't have that previous 6 minutes. So now I want to listen to that again. And that kind of keeps everything going. Because I could definitely see this band kind of hitting those spots when you're discovering them for the first time.
Absolutely. And just a quick side note as well, for anyone who doesn't know, Rick Wakeman, who's currently playing the church organ, he wears a cape So that makes everything so much more awesome just immediately.
It's like Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, I've wanted to wear a cape in Implored to Serve for years now, but I keep getting vetoed. It's, yeah. One day I'll make it happen.
Is that a Justine decision, or is it a whole band decision?
Our other guitar player, David, he vetoed it, but he just shut it down
immediately.
Boo, David.
Yeah.
He'll listen to this as well. So yeah, boo, David.
Yeah.
But he shut it down so quick. I don't think anyone else got a say in it. It was just like David, no, you're not wearing a cape, and it's like fair enough.
One of these days, you have to write a song. Just like, I don't know why, David. Just all of a sudden, this song has cape in the title, so I guess it's got to be a prop now.
I'll make it happen for sure. The next record, we'll just call it The Cape.
The Cape. You just write a concept album about the Robert De Niro masterpiece Cape Fear. And there you go. That works really well to heavy metal music, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
The first time I saw... Oh, no, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say the first time I saw Killswitch Engage, Adam D was wearing a cape and booty shorts like Daisy Dukes and everything like that. Maybe you don't have to use the Daisy Dukes, but I support the cape wearing in all forms.
Absolutely. I mean, if Adam D's doing it, then it's the seal of approval, right?
See, this is what I think of Yes right here. This kind of like keyboard wankery on it, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. It's, I mean, once again, textbook prog, right? If you just say like prog rock, this is immediately what people think of. And like, Yes are, you know, for want of a better term, overindulgent, but they have the hooks at the same time, particularly on this record. I mean, there's these like returning like motifs and sections that are just like little earworms. Like it's going to come back in a second, and then you're just immediately met with something recognizable and catchy.
Yeah,
you know. Almost poppy, I guess, in a way, but just kind of like bits like this, you know, that have been in the song before, and it's just hidden. He's got such a high voice, man. He's still killing it these days as well. Like, still doing it. Yeah.
When was the last time you saw them live?
I saw them this June.
Oh, cool.
A very like brief history of like the lineup, because it's way too long to fully explain. But so the singer John Anderson, who's singing now, he's not in the band anymore, and it hasn't been since like 2012, something like that. There's a bit of a like, not like big beef, but beef between him and Steve Howell, the guitar player, who's kind of the only person left in the band at the moment. But John Anderson still does his own tours where he sings Yes music, so you can still go out and hear him kill it, you know.
I got you.
Yeah. But I mean, to be in your 70s and be able to still hit these high notes, I mean, fair play.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, I don't know how they do it, because I can't even do it now in my 30s.
Exactly, man. Yeah. And some people lose it early on, and some people can just go forever, it seems, you know.
Yeah, that's always, to me, dedication, is being able to take care of your voice and your instrument and stuff like that for so long, given the rigors that life throws at you. Because sometimes you can try all you can and it's just not going to be there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, unfortunately for some people, they just get to a certain age. Oh, just real quick, this like little bit with the piano, just like... I don't know why. Love that bit. So good. Yeah, it's just a nice little touch. But yeah, we're literally just coming to the end of the title track, which clocks in just shy of 20 minutes, I think. So if you got it on vinyl, that's side A.
Yeah, so my 2112 vinyl is the same thing. It's just like you got side A and then everything else.
Yeah, dude, that album always like blows my mind, because that was kind of the record that really blew them into the stratosphere, wasn't it? And I remember their previous record, Caress of Steel, didn't do so well, and then they brought out 2112, and that one did like great. Which, I mean, I like both records. I think they're awesome, but 2112 isn't an easy record to listen to. It's not like a pop record.
It's
you know
not,
what I mean?
You also forget about how good some of the songs are on the B side of that one as well, because of how much real estate and like mind control 21, like the title track, takes up. But yeah, it's a fantastic record from start to back.
It is. It really is. It just blows my mind that like, that was the one, just because it's like side one is just one long song, you know.
Yeah, dude, again, people in the 70s are fucking crazy, dude. You never knew what was going to be happening.
Like you say, man, probably a lot of LSD.
I would hope so.
No internet.
So we are on And You and I, the second song, which is just a quick romp at about 10 minutes.
Exactly, just a short little banger. So the guitar intro to this is very beautiful. I believe it's like sounds like it's on a 12-string guitar. I don't know. It's very, very emotive. It's very nice to listen to.
It separates itself from kind of the madness that we just listened to. I think where this seems like it's more of serene and everything like that. It's like, all right, cool. So you got through the torrential storm of the first track, and now we're kind of in the valley and in the woods with the sun shining, and you know you've got the open air and everything like that. It's a little bit more pretty and digestible.
Absolutely, and that's kind of where they lost a lot of people on their follow-up records. So the next album, Tales of Topographic Oceans, that, like, I mean, I like it just because I kind of like anything Yesty. I'm kind of like blind to the good and the bad albums, like, but that one they fully overindulged, and a lot of their fans at the time were like, you've gone way off the deep end here. And I think on Close to the Edge they got it right. It's kind of got those moments of chaos, but then it's got moments like this, you know what I mean? There's the light and the shade, which makes for a great album, I think, if you've got a little bit of both.
Yeah, and you need that. And I think it's important to point out, too, for people who don't know. So Close to the Edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, is their 5th album. And they were doing the late 60s, early 70s thing where they were just cranking out albums left and right. It was like in the studio, record, go, do a support, come back into the studio, tour, record. Because it's like, Yes in 69, Time in the World in 70, and then the Yes album and Fragile in 71, and then Close to the Edge in 72, followed by Tales of Topographic Oceans in 73. You're just like, what the fuck?
No, dude, it's wild, isn't it? I mean, it's crazy to look back, and sometimes you even see, like, I'm pretty sure the first 2 Black Sabbath records are both 1970, right?
They are. Yep.
Like crazy output, but I mean that's just the way it was, wasn't it? It was just like get another product out there. But for Yes, it was, I feel like Fragile. Well, actually, hang on. Fragile, like, they almost nailed it, and then Close to the Edge is just like the seminal Yes record for me. Like, you can, like the Yes album, they were getting there. Fragile's a solid 9 out of 10. Close to the Edge, solid 10 out of 10.
Interesting. I'm looking at the album art for Fragile right now, and I when I was at a thrift store a couple of weeks ago, I remember seeing that in someone's little like cubby or whatever it is. But nice. I was like, it was probably, you know, between $15 and $20, so like not ridiculously cheap, but cheaper than, you know, a new record or whatever it is. But I didn't pick it up just because I was like, I don't know whether I'm going to be rewarded by just like picking this one out and putting it on my vinyl, but it turns out that I would have, so I probably should have spent the $15.
You know, for future, I mean, like, thankfully, I think it should probably pop up again, and who knows, you might get it cheaper, so you could be saving money. But I think it's funny you should mention that, because getting into these prog bands, that's exactly what it was like. I mean, Genesis is another one that I love. So like early Genesis with like Peter Gabriel, all about it. And when I was getting into them, it was like that. I hadn't become too accustomed to what album was what, and I'll be sifting through and I'm like, is this Phil Collins on vocals like Genesis, or is this Peter Gabriel Genesis? And you just, you know, not too sure whether you should buy it or not, whether you're gonna dig it.
Yeah, and I've talked about this on this show before, but I had no idea that Bruce Dickinson was not the original vocalist of Iron Maiden when I first started exploring them, because I went from Number of the Beast, Power Slave to Brave New World, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, 2000, great, whatever. And then I bought Killers and put it on and was just like, what the this isn't Bruce. What the fuck is going on? I felt kind of like cheated for a second, and then I realized like, no, it's still like a really good album. But like, it's funny how that works sometimes, where, you know, it's just, this is some of the things that turned me off metal for like a little bit too, as far as like, oh, you have to have everything in its order, know everything about Mark 1 era Deep Purple or Mark 3 era Deep Purple, or no, this is like, I'm just gonna go in and start listening to shit regardless of whatever anything is, and fuck the people who tell me otherwise, and one of these days I'll figure it out if it means anything to me. But who cares, you know?
Dude, that is, yeah, you're completely talking to the right person there. Because I think I mean, don't get me wrong, like being into music and stuff, we all like get nerdy about it, and you know, we like talking about it and stuff like that. But I think treating music as like an academic subject where anything you like, if you say you're a fan or a band of an artist, to be expected to know every single thing about them, to call yourself a fan is just dumb. You know what I mean? I think it puts people off being adventurous as well. You know what I mean? That kind of attitude, it kind of makes people keep to like the bands and the artists that they know, rather than just like you say, just being like, I'm just gonna have a little bit of everything and just sort of see what I like. You know what I mean? That's the best way to do it.
You'll find what you're looking for in your own time. But yeah, I've definitely felt sometimes, you know, oh, like I should know these bands, or like I should know this thing about this band, especially, you know, being in a sort of like public facing person of like putting myself out there for the internet and shit like that. That imposter syndrome is definitely real, but people don't worry about it. Just listen to what you want to listen to. Don't, like, if anybody tells you to name 3 songs when you're wearing a fucking t-shirt or whatever, you know they're an asshole, and you know that they're not worth your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm just getting a lot of like nature in my mind right now, like a lot of grass, a lot of like mushrooms. Whether they're the psychedelic kind or not is up to the listener or whatever, but very much out in the forest, out in the field.
Could just be a nice tasty portobello mushroom.
There you go.
Whatever you yeah. Yeah, I mean, that definitely is the vibe. I mean, and that, yeah, very much plays into why I enjoyed listening to it, you know, back during COVID times, just because it's a trippy listen. You can kind of find yourself tuning out. I mean, one of my huge band fascinations, maybe like 10 years ago or so, was like I got really into Earth and Sun and the kind of more like, you know, droney and kind of like hypnotic kind of music. And I think there's an element of that in prog, not only with the kind of more dreamy soundscapes, but even with the chaotic stuff. There's an element of kind of like with jazz, I guess. If you listen to free jazz, even though it's chaotic and, you know, mad, you can kind of almost just like fall into the chaos and be
I know exactly what you mean. I'm very, very hit or miss on my drone or like for that, like the funeral doom type of stuff, because I agree 100%. It just has to hit you a certain way where I always describe it as like weightless, right? Like if you can just like close your eyes and you feel like you're just resting on a bed of music. And yeah, sometimes it could just be like, you know, it could be just noise to me. But every once in a while, you know, just you get on the same wavelength as the artist and you can be like, yes, I am immersed in this and my eyes are closed, and whether my mind is going to be following the music or just going to be using the music to kind of put myself, astral project myself into some other thought process or whatever. Very, very cool.
I think it's kind of viewing that type of music in like in a different way that you view other music. I mean, it's like we were saying with Sumac, you wouldn't put it on in the background. You kind of have to like go for a walk and fully dive into it. And I think particularly listening to Sun and like the more kind of droney stuff, it's you kind of have to listen to it like a soundtrack to a movie. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of explained it to my friend who really didn't get it, that he loved like movie scores and like scores from like games and stuff like that. He'd be listening to stuff that wasn't even really like music. It was just like ambient sounds and like eerie kind of like tones. And I'm like, you may not like Sun, but this is exactly the same sort of thing that I get from Sun. You know what I mean? Is like sort of like, you know, tension and like there's still crescendos and things happening, even though it's not in like an obvious way if you were listening to like something more musical, so to speak. But there's still the build up and tension release and things like that. I mean,
very much so.
Another great example of that. I mean, on the surface, it just sounds like a bunch of random noise, but when you really jump into it, I mean, music is happening, just not in the traditional sense, I guess.
It is very meditative. It was what I was thinking when you were saying that, as far as, you know, they tell you in meditation, if you like your mind starts to wander, you kind of have to like breathe again and kind of get it back and start thinking about nothing. That's kind of how I feel about listening to bands like that, where, you know, you don't always have to keep your focus on the music, because if you do, it's going to feel ridiculously long. But sometimes you just got to let your mind wander a little bit and then kind of grab yourself and bring back on the music and see where you're at again.
Absolutely, man. That is the way you have to listen to that music. Have you listened to much Earth at all? Or
I have not. I've listened to, because I have listened to Sun. again, have to be in the mood for them, but very, very good. Just picky about them. I haven't listened to a lot of Earth.
I would say like the Bees Made Honey and the Lion's Skull, because it reminds me of, you know, certain bits of this record as well. That album is for me, that's the pinnacle of Earth. Like,
Okay.
I'll be surprised if they ever do a record better than that one. It's just great, kind of dreamy, kind of washy. It's quite bluesy, really. And
Okay. I like the album art.
Dude, yeah, it's incredible. I was fascinated with that album for a long time. Like Sun's like a weird one in recent years. Like, because I obviously, you know, I love everything they do, but I do think it's kind of, I don't know, they've rested on their laurels a little bit, I think, on some of the more recent records. So for me, like the best ones are Black One, Monoliths and Dimensions, and they did that collaboration with Boris. And it felt like they were doing something different on each record back then. Whereas like the last few Sun records, even though they're cool, I kind of feel like I've already heard it.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Whereas they kind of, you listen back to like that run from late 90s to like the mid noughties, where you had like the White One and Two, you know, Black One, Monoliths and Dimensions and all that kind of stuff. Each record was really different. And then since then it's kind of been like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I'm still going to listen to it and I'm still going to enjoy it, but it's not as exciting to me anymore as what they were doing previously. Yeah, I get you.
You kind of you've seen them do that trick before, so you kind of want them to do something new now.
How does that feel as far as, because like you're an artist and you're in a touring band and a band that makes records and stuff like that. I don't know if that's necessarily equivalent to what Employed to Serve is doing, because I quite think that Conquering is the best thing that Employed to Serve has done so far. So it's kind of not exactly apples to apples, but you know, do you feel kind of that? I mean, I'm sure that you feel the pressure, but I guess how does that pressure or that thought that like, oh, people are going to be definitely thinking about whether our old stuff beats our new stuff or the new, like how does that impact you as like a writer and like when you're coming up with your riffs and stuff like that, or does it even impact you at all?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said like it obviously doesn't like pop into your skull.
Sure.
You know, whenever you do a new record. But the thing is, I mean, we've kind of just like gone full speed ahead with just whatever we want to do. I mean, if you listen to Conquering compared to our first album, I mean, it's very obvious we're a different band nowadays, and it's just been
even the previous album for before that too.
For real, you know. And the big change there was, so like going into COVID, we were quite fortunate that everyone who left the band between our album Eternal Forward Motion and our latest one Conquering, they did it before COVID happened. So thankfully we went into COVID with the new lineup in place, and we were for new members during a global pandemic. And with the band moving even then in a more metal direction, having Casey come on board who like used double kick and stuff like that, the green light was well and truly like lit when Conquering happened. And I think that's why it's so much of a jump between Eternal Forward Motion and Conquering, just because I was just like, I can do this now, you know what I mean? And it opened up so many different doors to, you know, for directions we could go. But I was a little bit worried about it, but at the same time, ETS has kind of always like embraced throwing curveballs. Like I remember when we put out our second record and it had songs like I Spend My Days and Good for Nothing, which were more verse chorus structure, which for me at the time was like, whoa, this is so like outrageous. Like having only been in bands for years, that was just like riff, another riff, and like nothing repeats.
Like done in 2 minutes and that's it.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like even the idea of having something with verse chorus seemed like a wild kind of step.
Are we selling out? Are we selling out because we have verse chorus? Fuck.
It's literally how it felt. And you know, and like with all these things, when you introduce something new, I remember when we released that album, there was people who weren't into I Spend My Days and songs like that. And what I've always really enjoyed with doing something a bit different and throwing a curveball, even though it may have like a bit of a negative reaction from some people, it's like that kind of makes it more interesting though, because you get people, you know, if you're lucky, and in this case we were, people did like, you know, our change in direction. You have people championing it, and then you have people who are like, no, I don't like it, and I think that makes things way more interesting because it has people talking about it no matter what, because you don't want it to just be completely indifferent. You know what I mean? I feel it's just kind of always kind of work for us for every now and again, just chucking out a song here or there and being like, don't get too comfortable with like anything we do. I mean, we like to always make sure that it sounds like us and it has our stamp on it, but anything kind of goes. I mean, with the last record, doing a song like Mark of the Grave, that was like a huge step in a new direction for us. And it just kind of lets people know that, like, hey, we might do a bit of this.
But it's so good.
hope
I
you
was listening to that song before I came on because the groove and the swing in that thing is just like, oh my God, I just want to get in a pit and punch someone on it. But like, also like, you know, another thing with this is like, y'all believe in your music too, you know, like you are wanting to do stuff. It's not just like, okay, cool. We've got like, you know, there's no rules and we're going to try everything. You're just, you know, throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks and everything like that. You have, you know, you're taking off the guidelines, but still staying in what like you believe ETS is and what you want to do, and you know what Justine wants to do as vocalists and what everybody else wants to do as musicians. I always think it's funny how, especially nowadays, so many bands, whether they've been around for a little bit or have, you know, put out more than just like a handful of albums, are always just like, hey, you know, we have to let people know that just because you like this doesn't mean that you're gonna like the previous stuff or like the stuff that we're gonna be doing before and everything like that. Which I'll champion this to my dying day. That I that's what I want my bands to do, you know, like obviously you have your bands that have their sound and do it really well and can do whatever it was in that universe that they have. But I always want to see the bands that I like pushing forward and trying to do stuff that was a little bit different than what they did before. What you think they might be right now may not be what they are going to be in an album or two or in 5 years or something like that. And I think it's fucking cool. And I think that the era of like, oh, they changed their sound, they sold out, just needs to fucking go, you know?
Yeah, or just like, you know, if you know, because I've got bands where I only like certain records by them, and that's cool. But you know, I'm like, all power to you. You go and do what you do. I'm not gonna shit on the music you're doing. And I'm happy about that with ETS as well. You know, I'm sure there's people out there who are more into our kind of botch Norma Jean stuff of, you know, the first album.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only record they like of us, but that's totally fine. You know what I mean? You know, I've had people say it to my face before and like, but they're respectful, and that's cool. I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
No, I think for me, the biggest thing is I just want my artists to be genuine. And I've talked about this. I had Debbie Go on for a previous episode. We talked about this as well. It's just like, you know, you can really tell when an artist is doing something that they want to do because they want to do it, or just because like, oh, they, you know, they think that they should be doing this time, or they want to, you know, corner the commercial market or something like that. That's it for me. Like, I don't care if a band tries to do something wildly, you know, off course or whatever, and it ends up failing because, hey, at least you tried and you're trying something different. But if it's like, no, we're completely doing a 180, that's a complete anathema to everything that we've doing before, then I can understand people getting a little bit, you know, upset with that and everything like that. But I always shout out Nostradamus by Judas Priest, right? Because like, it's not a good album. There's some good songs on it, but as a whole, it's not a very good album. But man, at that time, Judas Priest could have just fucking like run in the motions and put up another like Angel of Retribution type of thing with like, here's our Priest bangers and here's a ballad and here's that. But they went way off the rails to try and do like an Iron Maiden epic concept album theatrical thing that Rob Halford wanted to do a whole stage production for. And it didn't work, and it was not very good, but they fucking tried.
They tried it.
And they didn't need to. They did not need to at all, and I respect the fuck out of them for that. And the title track is an absolute banger, regardless of how shitty the album was.
Well, that's the thing. It's like with all of these records where it's, you know, a bit of a miss on what they set out to do, there's always redeeming qualities to them. I mean, go back to Tales of Topographic Oceans by Yes, you know what I mean? Is I can see why critically it was panned, and you know, and the fans were a bit like, you've gone off the deep end here. But I'm the same as you. I'm like, well, fair fucking play. Like, you're at the peak of success right now, and you just put out this ridiculous album that's like so inaccessible. So props for giving it a go, even if it didn't, you know, if you didn't nail it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and like, I think that is basically just like the crux of everything is just, if you're in a band or want to be in a band or just want to write songs, just do it to the best of your ability. That's something that you believe in, that makes you feel something. Because if you feel something, chances are that other people are gonna feel something as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just a universal thing that you can tell if someone's doing something their heart and soul's not into. If you're genuine about it and you really like it, I think that kind of energy is infectious, you know what I mean? And people very much vibe off of that. And that's totally what we're doing. I mean, for me, a huge part of it was like, oh, I want to write songs that have melody and things, you know, having been in metal bands for years and being into like the more angular and esoteric stuff, you know, I've been in bands where it's like, you know, no melody, no riffs repeat and stuff like that. And as much as that music still excites me and stuff, from a musician standpoint, it's like, no, I want to have a go at writing songs that, even though we're presenting them as a metal track, you could actually kind of strip this back, and it's just a song that you could kind of put in any genre and it would work. And like with this new record that we've just recorded, there's a lot more of that. But like, I feel we've sort of given a little insight to the next record. It's a development on Conquering. I think like if I had a criticism about Conquering looking back on it now, because of what I was saying earlier of having that green light to write, you know, more metal stuff, I think it's kind of like the tap is on just like fully the entire time.
Yeah.
And there's not the light and shade within that I kind of like from all the other music that I listen to.
I can see that, yeah. After like, because I listened to the record yesterday just to kind of like prepare, and like it goes hard. You're right, but there's no like, yeah, like a little bit of a restraint in that, or pulling back the reins, I guess, a little bit. Yeah,
that's it. And I feel, yeah, like for me, particularly listening to prog and stuff, I love the way the music ebbs and flows. And don't get me wrong, it's still an Employed to Serve album. The majority of it is just like pounding the whole time, but I would say there's definitely a lot more light and shade and sort of dynamics to it, which yeah, very excited about for sure.
I like, you know, the fact that, you know, y'all are still, you know, ambitious and self-aware enough, and just like wanting to push yourselves enough that you can have an album like Conquering that by all measures did very well, whether it was like, you know, critically, or whether it was like from the fans, both new or old, but you're still looking at that being like, we could do better. Like there's things that we didn't like on it, and we can like want to change that. I don't know. I think that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's the way to do it. And I'm sure like every, you know, musician or artist will be the same. It's like, if your next release doesn't make you sort of feel like that, then it's like time to go back to the drawing board, because that's the way I want to feel. Like every time we put out a new record or anything new, it's like, holy shit, this is so much better. Like you want to have that feeling of going like, yo guys, everything else is like rubbish. Wait, this is the right here, you know. That's, you know, the feeling we always strive for when we're doing something new.
I love it. But hey, we did exactly what I said that we were going to do, because the album ended about like 10 minutes ago. We're still just like jabbering and John on. So that is definitely I know we were talking a lot through that about like a whole bunch of different things, but those 3 songs actually did fly by a lot faster than I think that they would have if you just like look at how long they are before. And definitely will be something that I have to go back to, because even if we were listening to it without saying anything, we're just staring at each other the whole time, we would not have been able to absorb everything that's on that's on that record. So like, what are your like final thoughts, wrap-ups about what we just listened to?
I mean, yeah, I feel like this has hopefully been a nice introduction for, you know, the listeners checking out this episode. But yeah, I feel revisiting it is the best way to kind of get the full effect. It's the only way, as far as I'm concerned, unless you've put your headphones on and you've gone for a walk and listened to Close to the Edge from start to finish, you've not given it a proper go.
There you go. And we'll say for those first 3 songs, because if you, dear listener, dear viewer, are looking at this in like Spotify or Apple Music, you'll see way more songs on here than were originally released, and pushes it to over an hour of listening time. Listen to those 3 songs. They're just barely 40 minutes, and I'm telling you, they go by. And I'm going to do that the next time when the weather gets so that I don't explode into flames when walking outside and just like drench in and ruin my headphones. I think I'm going to go through a walk in the woods and listen to this album. It does seem like a very good woods album, actually.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And just with like a nice, like cool summer breeze, like evening air, just sort of blowing past you.
Yeah, that's why end of September, October, beginning of November are my favorite because you still have like the tail end of the long days, but you get some of the cool of the breeze and like the crunchy leaves and everything like that. It's just the best. Before we wrap up, though, I did want to ask you because maybe our listeners know or they do not. You and Justine are also, in addition to running Employed to Serve and doing all that shit, you also run Church Road Records, which is just a massive, full-time job in and of itself. The roster that Church Road is able to assemble is just, in my opinion, it's one of the best from like any of the record labels out there. And I think that you were starting to see like, Harriet's on Century Media Records now, and where did they start? I know, I mean, I don't know. I know that you all worked with Holy Roar before Church Road started, and it's been a few years. We don't have to rehash every single thing that went on with that, but for those of you who don't know, Google it. Not good stuff happened, and Sammy and Justine came out of the ashes from that with Church Road Records. And was it always the plan to run a record label, or was this just something that you saw an opportunity for and were like, well, we have the experience, we have the know-how, we like doing what we're doing, and there are a lot of bands that are going to be up Schitt's Creek if we don't do something? Was that the impetus, or had you two kind of known for a while that you were going to start a record label?
It's funny because before the whole Holy Roar thing like exploded, me and Justine were talking about things that we could do sort of like on the business side, like because Justine was looking to move away from Holy Roar and maybe do something by herself, but we were like, we can't do a record label because the kind of stuff we want to do would be like in direct competition with Holy Roar.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing Church Road at the time, but it was a passion project. I had like a box of distro records and I released some of my side projects and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So my knowledge of like, so I didn't work at Holy Roar. Justine did. I did like some interning. I like turned up and packed records every now and again. So my actual like knowledge of the industry compared to what it is now was like zero. So when it all exploded with Holy Roar, Justine was like, well, I still want to work in the music industry. And then she was like, I want to do a new label and try and save these records that are coming out imminently on Holy Roar, so they don't just go completely to shit. And she said to me, she goes like, look, you've already got the logo, you've already got the name, you've got a website, do you mind if I come over and we'll do Church Road as a proper thing? So prior to Justine coming over, I mean, it was literally just like something I did for fun,
Wow, okay.
Put out a couple of records here and there. I'm a bit of a musical magpie where I want to collect as many projects as possible. So that was like my way of putting all that kind of stuff out. So it was from then that it became like a proper thing. And, I just had to kind of hit the ground running and, get up to speed really. Cause I was a gardener. I was doing garden maintenance before doing Church Road full time, because that job allowed me to take as much unpaid leave as I wanted to do. I wanted to do Employed to Serve. So even though it came from something like absolutely terrible, it was a great opportunity to work within the music industry and be able to do the band at the same time, because I can take the work, with me as I go. Whereas before I couldn't do that. That's why I had to have the other job. So it's been great for opening up that avenue. But yeah, going back to the point, it was only from that point on that it became like a fully fledged thing. We were doing like proper releases and, kind of what we are now essentially.
I remember this vividly just because it was COVID times, and so there wasn't. Well, I mean, there was a lot going on, but for certain things get like stuck in your brain and everything like that. But I remember because that was the album cycle where I really got into Svalbard, because I hadn't like really jived with their stuff before. But then hearing what was it, Listen to Somebody, it just like clicked with me, and I was like, holy fuck, this band is incredible. And if I remember correctly, it was like 3 weeks to go before that album came out that you all were able to like, all right, I know that they did some other record labels like across the pond and stuff like that, but it was like, that's how quick things moved, that 3 weeks before their record was going to come out, y'all jumped in and, got everything going and put it out on Church Roads overseas.
It was crazy. I mean, like, we even had like my mum packing up orders and stuff.
Oh, wow.
but because like it was the old stock that we got from, because we didn't want to just like bin thousands and thousands of records, so
Yeah.
we bought the records from Holy Roar so that we could put it out properly, and we had to sticker over like every copy, so that in itself just like took an eternity. I mean, it was it's easier now to sort of look back in hindsight, and you obviously remember like the nice things about it. It was a super stressful time. I mean, particularly for Justine, who was like simultaneously closing down one record label whilst opening up a new one, essentially. But there were like moments of niceness in it. Like my mum, for example, helping packaging up records and stickering up the vinyl sleeves, and it's nice to see like how many people supported it as well. We launched the subscription service almost straight away, and people were just not just supportive of us but the bands as well. And I'm just so glad that those records, all three of them, have been like highlights for those bands, because they're amazing albums, and it would have been such a shame for them to kind of just have been affected by the demise of Holy Roar, really.
Yeah, and I know that the artists really appreciate it too, because when I know they're not a band anymore, but when Ohms released their last record, I was talking to Paul Waller about this, and he was talking about how the fact that they were like this close to breaking up already before the whole Holy Roar drama happened, and then it was really, I think he said both you and Justine, but I'm sure it was probably just like a lot of Justine working with her back and forth. There's no, we can do this. Come over to ours. We'll put it out and everything like that, which they ended up splitting up just a couple of months ago, I think, which is sad because they're a really good band. But he was very much effusive in the praise of being like, if it wasn't for Sammy and Justine and Church Road Records, we would not be a band, and we would not have been a band for like a very long time.
Which that's amazing to hear, because like for me, Rot is just such an incredible record, and it
So
really, I mean, going back to bands trying out like new things, that's once again Ohms just being absolutely exceptional at putting out a new record and doing something different on each one and just nailing it. I mean, what a song of an album. And I'm just I'm glad we got to hear that. And that's the beauty of Church Road for me, is because I like the fact that we're kind of that label that can sort of help bands like Harriet, who can go on to like Century Media or Nuclear Blast, and then we can also have bands like Ohms who maybe didn't have that aspiration to become like a full-time touring band. They were just a group of musicians who very much had their lives outside of the band. Like some of them were teachers. Paul's got kids. Well, I think all of them have got kids. They got other stuff going on.
Right.
I like that we're able to like help bands out like that who wouldn't necessarily get the support from a bigger label because they can't afford to tour that often, but we can kind of come in and help bring that music to hopefully a wider audience.
Yeah, and that's what the last band I think I'll gush about, which I could gush about plenty of them, but the St. Petersburg band Wowad, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, if they're still on your roster or not, but they're fucking incredible. And that last album that they put out, literally I still spin it because it just like affected me in such a way when it came out that I was like, I need this type of thing all of the time.
Oh, dude, yeah, that band absolutely rock. I mean, we still work with them. I mean, obviously, because of the sad state of things going on in Russia, our communication's been a bit limited. We had like contact with them, sort of things were really ramping up over there. Just they, even though we obviously kind of guessed they were, like they were like, we're totally against all of this stuff, but we have to kind of like go off grid now because we can't really be talking about it too much. But
they did put out they did put out a statement I saw that was basically just saying like fuck Putin and all that other stuff. But yeah, they have been very quiet, and I've assumed that it's been for those reasons.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because they did that sort of status, and then I think they kind of like went off for a bit because I don't really know, but I think kind of even putting out like a statement like that,
they're putting themselves in danger by doing that. Yes,
pretty dangerous.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, I mean, phenomenal record, and really, really hoping we can do something again with them in the future. And you were pretty close to the pronunciation as well, because me and Justine for ages were like, is it Woywod? And then we got one of the dudes to send us a voice note, and it's Vowwood.
Vowwood, okay, because I was like, I'm sure is it like Vavod, or is it? And I listened to they had some like studio footage, and I was listening to their producer, and it was all in he was speaking in Russian. They had subtitles and everything, but I heard "bubud." It's like,
Yeah.
and so I was just like, but that doesn't help me. So
Yeah.
Vawud is how you say it?
Volwood, yeah. I
Vawud,
think,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, like the first one's a V and then the second one's a W. But I mean, it's the classic metal band conundrum, isn't it?
Of
I mean,
course.
how many band names have we had?
Never gonna be able to say it right, and everyone's gonna say "wowwad" or whatever the fuck. But I
Yeah.
did, before I was doing any streaming or like Knotfest thing or anything like that. I actually sent them an email, because I think on their Bandcamp or their Metal Archives page, there's just like a Gmail or whatever. I was like, "How do you pronounce your name?" I never got a response back, but I was just like, I need to know, because I need to tell people about this band.
Oh, it's so funny, isn't it? I'm just like, over the years, the different ways I've heard necrophagist pronounced, and like things
Necrophagist.
like necrophagist. Yeah, to be honest with you, over the years, necrophagist has sound more and more right, but I don't know.
No, I can't. It's got to be necrophagist for me.
Necrophagist, yeah. Nazum is probably my favorite pronunciation of Nazum I've ever heard.
I've never heard that, but that's funny.
Yeah,
Nazum
it's
sounds like a Ghostbusters villain or something like that. Like a
It
zoom.
does, doesn't it? Yeah.
All right, I'm sure that, Sammy, that we could chat for just like fucking hours and hours, and hopefully one of these days we can do it in a pub with a couple of pints. But to wrap this up, if someone was like, holy shit, Close to the Edge, yes, I am like, I need to know more. What would you recommend? Obviously, there's no right way, right? We established this. It's not like you have to do this, but your recommendations for people wanting to kind of go down a little bit of a Yes rabbit hole and explore their discography.
I would say very much your next record should be Fragile.
Okay.
If you like Close to the Edge, then you move to Fragile. And then I would say kind of go, if you're into the more like weird kind of stuff, go back to the Yes album. Maybe I like the first two records, but they're nothing special compared to like what they do afterwards. So I'd say go back to Fragile, Yes album, and then just go forwards. I would say for me personally, like the last truly great Yes album is Drama, which came out in 1980, which, not to go down a rabbit hole, but just it's getting into Yes can be fascinating, because on that record the Buggles join, so Trevor Horn replaces John Anderson as singing lead vocals. You get a whole load of different stuff with Yes, but like Drama is the last record I would go up to personally.
That's 10 Yes records, everybody. And if you want to, you can throw out the first couple if you want. Just start with the Yes album go. So that's only 8 if you really, really want to do the exploration. And then if anybody out there has any opinions or has even listened to newer Yes, I see that they have 2023, 21, 2014, staypuffedmetal@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions, your stories, whatever it is. Tell me about your experiences with Yes. So, Sammy, thank you so much. This has been fucking fantastic, dude. I'm sure we'll probably have to do this again, and I'm very much looking forward to when we can announce to the world that the new ETS album is here. And hopefully, I know it's expensive as all hell, but hopefully one of these days you can pop on a headline tour with someone and do a support slot through the US, because I know that there are going to be a lot of people here, whether they've heard you or not, that are going to absolutely dig the style of music that y'all play.
Fingers crossed next year is the year that will be in the States. So yeah, we're gunning for it. So
Yeah.
hopefully it will happen. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast, and yeah, can't wait to hear what people think of Yes, Close to the Edge.
Hell fucking yeah. Us Yanks hope to see Employed to Serve on our shores sooner rather than later, but until then, go check out Conquering. Go check out Eternal Forward Motion and The Warmth of a Dying Sun. All of their records kicks ass, and like I mentioned on there, I think that they have only gotten better with each one. Also be on the lookout for new music from Employed to Serve coming basically like any week now. I would imagine just knowing how the way that things go, it'll probably come out like a week after I post this. It's how it always happens. Huge thanks to Sammy for holding my hand through that prog rock jungle. I have to say, I don't think I'd call myself a convert yet, even after like exploring some of the albums that Sammy recommended. But I do have to say, I did listen to this album again, walking through some dense woods a couple of weeks ago, and do have to say, really good. It definitely hit. It definitely hit in nature out there. That's all we've got for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to us, whether you're watching, listening, or consuming, however it is that you do. Give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever manner of fealty your chosen platform avails you. And don't forget to check us out on Instagram, on YouTube, on Patreon, at Spinning the Wax. And you can follow me personally on Instagram, staypuffed_Malo for pet pictures and all of that good shit. Any type of share, word of mouth, like, anything like that is huge as we're building this thing from the ground up. So massive shout out to our marshmallow supporters on Patreon, Chris Fletch, Triceracop, Mr. DJ Actals, as well as the other fine folks in the other tiers supporting my stupid little project. We couldn't do this without you, and I thank you so much. If you want to subscribe, come on, you can get a shout out on this episode. You can get live streams, you can get new music roundups, you can get early access to things and suggestions for what type of albums that we listen to, what type of music we go, all of that other shit. It's still early days in this, but we're developing a nice little community over there, and we would love for you to join us. We will be back on November 6th when Andrea Morgan from the Keening and Excellences comes on to share a 2005 album from the now defunct Canadian sludge band Buried Inside. It's really good, everybody. So, hey, thank you so much. We will see you next time. All right, stay safe and stay sane. Stay heavy. Stay puffed.